My phone rings at 1:52 in the morning, and it's my father. And the first thing he says before even hello is that Saturday I'm allowed to come to my sister's engagement dinner, but I need to keep my mouth shut about my job. I ask why. My mother grabs the phone from him and says her fiancé's father is a Supreme Court justice. Retired now but still on every board in Ottawa that matters. And the last thing this family needs is me making everyone uncomfortable talking about dead bodies at the table. I tell her fine. I say it so easily that she pauses, like she expected a fight and didn't get one. I have learned, by 31, that the fight is never worth it. I have also learned that silence isn't surrender. Sometimes it's just patience wearing a different coat. I'm a forensic pathologist at a hospital in Hamilton, Ontario. I spend my days with the dead, figuring out what killed them, and whether anyone needs to answer for it. My mother has spent 12 years calling this the morgue thing. Like I clean up after autopsies instead of performing them. Like I'm an orderly with a mop, instead of the person a coroner calls when a death doesn't add up. My younger sister, Talia, is marrying into the Ashworth family, and Justice Reginald Ashworth, retired now, but you'd never know it from the way the city still treats him, is going to be sitting 4 feet from me at that dinner table on Saturday, and my mother would rather I didn't exist in his peripheral vision. I should back up. I grew up in a narrow brick house in Burlington with my mother, my father, and my sister, and a corkboard in our kitchen that my mother updated religiously. Talia's school photos, Talia's dance recital ribbons, Talia's report cards with little gold star stickers my mother bought specifically for this purpose. There was a photo of me on that board too, from my 8th grade graduation, tucked behind a magnet shaped like a maple leaf that said Go Canada. You had to lift the magnet to see my whole face. I used to do it when nobody was around, lift the magnet, look at myself for a second, and put it back exactly where it was, cause if I left it crooked, my mother would ask who'd been touching the board. I never asked her to move it. I think some part of me, even at 13, understood there were rules in our house I hadn't agreed to but was expected to follow anyway. The rule was, Talia's the bright one, the warm one, the one people remember. I was the serious one, the odd one, the one who read about the Halifax explosion for fun, and asked too many questions at the dinner table about how things died, which my mother found unsettling rather than interesting. When I got into McMaster for undergrad on an entrance scholarship, my mother's response was that it was a good school for someone who needed structure. When Talia got accepted into a 2-year hospitality diploma at a community college, my mother told her book club that Talia had multiple offers from competitive programs and chose the one with the best industry connections. Both of those things might have technically been true. The framing was where the lying happened. I kept going. I did my undergrad, then medical school at Western, then my residency in anatomical pathology, then a fellowship in forensic pathology that took me to Toronto for 2 years before I came back closer to home, to Hamilton, because my father's heart wasn't what it used to be, and I wanted to be able to get to him in under an hour if I needed to. Every milestone I called my mother. Every milestone, she found a way to redirect the conversation to Talia within 90 seconds. The week I passed my forensic pathology board exams, one of the harder days of my professional life. 4 years of training distilled into one brutal sitting. My mother told me on the phone that Talia had just been made assistant manager at the boutique hotels where she worked, and didn't. I think that was wonderful, given everything Talia had been through. Everything Talia had been through was, as far as I could tell, a normal 20s. My mother narrated my sister's life in superlatives. To her friends, Talia wasn't an assistant hotel manager. She was running operations for a luxury property. Talia didn't handle the front desk schedule and complaint resolution. She was in guest relations leadership. My mother's Christmas letter one year said Talia was thriving in the hospitality industry, on track for a director-level role within the year. I love my sister. None of this was her fault, particularly, but I noticed, the way you notice a draft in a house, that the inflation never happened to my side of the story. My mother could have said, my daughter is a forensic pathologist, 4 words, true, impressive on their own with no embellishment required, and instead she told her sister-in-law I worked downtown, in a lab, doing tests. I don't have a husband. I don't have kids. I have a 1-bedroom condo in Hamilton with case files I'm not supposed to bring home but sometimes do, and a cat named Pierogi who knocks pens off my desk while I read toxicology reports. There's no easy version of my job to put on a Christmas card. So my mother simply didn't put it there. In 6 years of her sharing things online, I exist in exactly one photo, and in that one I'm cropped to a shoulder and half a sleeve. 11 months before the dinner, I testified as an expert witness in a case that made the news across southern Ontario. A death that had initially been ruled accidental, where my findings during a second autopsy led to a homicide charge. The trial ran 3 weeks. I was on the stand for 2 full days. The presiding judge was a sharp, exacting woman named Justice Adair Whitlock, who didn't tolerate sloppy testimony from anyone, expert witnesses included. After the verdict came back, I was getting coffee in the courthouse cafeteria when she walked past, stopped, turned around, and said, "Doctor, your testimony in there was the clearest expert evidence I've heard given in this courtroom in some time. The jury understood every word of it. That matters more than people realize." Then she nodded once and kept walking. I stood there holding my coffee until it went cold. I wanted to call my mother. I didn't because I already knew how that call would go. The night of the engagement dinner, I pulled out the navy blazer I'd worn the day I gave a forensic pathology presentation at a national conference in Vancouver, the one where I'd gotten a standing ovation from a room of 400 pathologists for a talk on misclassified deaths in elder care. I hadn't planned on wearing it. My hand just went to it in the closet, the way your hand finds the thing that fits before your brain catches up. My mother opened the door before I had a chance to knock, and her eyes went straight to my outfit, scanning it like she was checking for contraband. "You're early," she said. "Good. We need to talk before everyone gets here." She walked me through it like a stage manager. My seat would be at the far end, near the kitchen, away from the Ashworths. "Tonight is about your sister, Marisol. Don't make it about the job. Just be pleasant and let people talk." The guests started arriving around 6:30. Talia's fiancé, a soft-spoken architect named Graham. His mother, Bridget, elegant in the particular Rosedale way, all quiet fabric and quieter judgment. And then Justice Ashworth and his wife, Eleanor. Not the Eleanor from anywhere I'd known before. Just a kind-faced woman in a cardigan who shook my hand warmly and held it a beat longer than necessary, like she was actually looking at me. My mother introduced me fast, the way you'd mention a coat check. "This is my older daughter Marisol. She works downtown, in a lab." Justice Ashworth took my hand, said my name slowly like he was turning it over, looking for where he'd heard it. Something flickered across his face. My mother steered him toward his seat before it could finish flickering. Dinner unfolded exactly as my mother had choreographed it. She poured wine. She narrated Talia's accomplishments at length. The hotel's recent renovation, a glowing guest review Talia had apparently framed, a possible promotion on the horizon. And every time the conversation drifted toward me, she redirected it with the efficiency of a woman who'd had a lot of practice. "Marisol, can you grab more ice from the freezer? Marisol, check if the rolls need another minute." Bridget tried twice to ask what exactly I did downtown. Twice my mother answered for me before I could finish a sentence. Then Justice Ashworth tapped his glass with a fork, and the table went quiet, and he stood up to give the toast. He talked about Grammy, about what it means to build a life with someone, about character showing itself in the small moments rather than the big speeches. He said something kind about Talia's warmth, her energy, how she'd made Graham laugh more in 8 months than he had in the previous 8 years. It was a good toast. Then he didn't sit back down. He walked, slowly, around the edge of the table, the unhurried way I imagine he used to walk to a bench, and he stopped behind my chair. "I have to say," he said, "I wasn't expecting to see you here tonight." My mother's laugh came out high and quick, the kind of laugh designed to fill a silence before it could become a problem. He didn't look at her. "What exactly is it that you do again?" he asked me. "I feel I should know this." I felt the old script rising up in my throat, the one where I say, "I work in a lab downtown," and let the moment slide past like every moment before it had. I thought about the courthouse cafeteria, the cold coffee. Justice Whitlock's voice saying, "That matters more than people realize." I thought about the magnet shaped like a maple leaf. "I'm a forensic pathologist," I said. "I work primarily out of Hamilton. I do post-mortem examinations for the coroner's office, and I testify as an expert witness in homicide and inquest cases across the region." Justice Ashworth turned, for the first time all evening, fully toward my mother. His expression wasn't angry. It was worse than angry. It was simply finished, pretending not to notice. "Mrs. Calloway," he said, "I sat on a panel last spring, reviewing forensic protocols for the province. Your daughter's name came up twice, in connection with 2 separate cases that cited as models of careful, defensible forensic work. One of those cases, I'm told, changed how a coroner's office in this region handles elder care deaths going forward. That's not working in a lab. That's the kind of work that keeps innocent people out of prison and guilty people in it." Bridget set down her wineglass with a small, precise click. "You told me your daughter did clerical work in a medical office," she said to my mother, voice level and cold, in a way that Rosedale voices specialize in. "Not forensic pathology testimonies cited at the provincial level." My mother's hand went to her napkin, twisting it. "I didn't want to make this dinner about. I just wanted tonight to be simple." Talia, who had gone very still, turned to Graham. "Your mom asked me last month why your sister never comes to family things, and I told her Marisol just wasn't close with us. That's what Mom told me to say." Then she turned to our mother, and something in her face cracked open. "Why would you tell people that? Why would you make her sound like she's avoiding us, when she's literally sitting right there?" My mother's eyes filled. "I was trying to protect this family. Her work, it's morbid, Talia. It unsettles people. I didn't want it following you into your new life. My father, who had not said a single word all night, set down his fork. She's right, Sandra. You went too far this time. It was the first time I'd heard him use that tone with her in 20 years. Eleanor, the justice's wife, stood up slowly, smoothing her cardigan. What I'm hearing, she said, gently but with no give in it at all, is that you erased one daughter so you could tell a tidier story about the other. That's not protecting a family. That's protecting an image, and the cost was your own child. Justice Ashworth reached into his jacket pocket and set a card down beside my water glass. If you're ever asked to speak on forensic standards reform, or you need a reference for anything provincial, Dr. Calloway, you call that number. Graham had been quiet through all of it, watching Talia. I need a second, Talia told him. I need to understand what I didn't ask, because I should have asked. She slid the ring off her finger, not a scene, not thrown across the table, just set down carefully. The way you'd set down something you weren't ready to put away forever either. I'm not saying no, she told him. I'm saying not yet, not until I understand what I've been standing inside of. I stood up. I folded my napkin. I picked up my blazer off the back of the chair. I looked at my mother, and for once I wasn't performing calm, I actually felt it. I love you, I told her, but this is the last night I make myself small so you can feel comfortable. If you want me at this table again, it's going to be as who I actually am. She flinched, like I'd raised my voice, though I hadn't raised it at all. My father looked down at his plate. I walked out into the November air without my coat, got into my car, and drove the 40 minutes home to Hamilton with the radio off. Because I didn't trust myself to listen to anything that wasn't my own thoughts. By morning there were 14 messages. My mother's escalated steadily through the night, first wounded, then furious. You humiliated this entire family in front of people who matter. I hope your career keeps you warm because it seems to be all you care about. My father, at 6:40 a.m., a single line. I'm sorry, Marisol. I should have said that years ago. 3 words I'd needed since I was a teenager, finally arriving as 4. Talia, close to midnight. I don't know how I feel right now, but I'm not angry at you. I never want you to think that. And one number I didn't recognize, a text from Bridget. My husband hasn't stopped talking about your work since Saturday. I'd like to take you for coffee if you're open to it. No agenda. We met 3 weeks later at a cafe near Yorkville. She told me my mother had described me to her, over the years, as someone who'd had a difficult time settling into adult life. Said with such warmth and concern that Bridget had believed it completely, had felt sorry for me before she'd ever met me. What do you even call that? Bridget asked, stirring her coffee. When a mother does that to her own child. I used to call it the magnet test, I told her, and explained about the corkboard, the maple leaf magnet, lifting it to see my own face. You keep checking if they've moved it, if they ever will. Did they? She asked. Once, I said, recently. Talia called 6 weeks after the dinner. She told me she'd known, somewhere underneath, that our mother's version of me wasn't accurate, but it had been easier to let the story stand than to push back on it. She apologized in stages over several conversations, the way real apologies tend to arrive, not all at once, in a neat package. She and Graham are seeing a counselor together now, working through what it means to build trust on a foundation that had a crack in it from the start. The ring went back on about 4 months later. She sent me a photo with no caption, just her hand. I wrote back, I see it. I'm glad. My mother called on a Tuesday afternoon, her voice smaller than I'd heard it in years. I've been telling a version of you to people for so long, she said, that I think I started believing it myself, a little. I don't fully understand your work, Marisol. I never tried to. I should have asked you to explain it to me instead of pretending it wasn't there. It wasn't the apology I used to imagine as a kid, the dramatic one, the one with tears and a complete reckoning. It was a tired woman on a weekday, telling something close to the truth, maybe for the first time. If we're going to try again, I told her, it has to be with the real me, not the edited one. I know, she said, I'd like to try. I drove out to Burlington the following Saturday, no occasion, no reason given. The corkboard was still in the kitchen, by the back door. My 8th grade photo, front teeth too big for my face, glasses slightly crooked, was sitting front and center. The maple leaf magnet had been moved to the side, a little off-kilter, like she hadn't fully decided what to do with the space it used to take up, just that it didn't belong covering my face anymore. Over dinner, she asked me, plainly, like any mother might ask any daughter, what an actual day at work looked like for me, start to finish, I told her. She asked questions when she didn't understand something instead of changing the subject. She didn't once mention Talia's promotion, or steer the conversation anywhere else. It wasn't a fixed family. It wasn't the end of the work it would take to actually trust her again, but it was a door that had been welded shut for 31 years. I cracked open about an inch, with light coming through it for the first time I could remember. If you've ever sat at a table where your own family treated you like the footnote in someone else's story, I want you to hear this clearly. Love that requires you to make yourself smaller isn't love. It's management. dressed up nicely so it doesn't have to look at itself in the mirror. The night Justice Ashworth asked me what I did for a living. In front of everyone. I thought telling the truth might cost me my mother permanently. What it actually cost me was a role I'd been handed before I was old enough to say no to it. The quiet older daughter who keeps her head down so the bright one can take up all the light. Roles only hold as long as somebody keeps reading their lines. The day I stopped was the day mine finally started to change. So if you're sitting at a table right now, where the entry fee is pretending to be less than you are, ask yourself who decided that's what belonging was supposed to cost you. Because the first person who needs to know you're done shrinking isn't them. It's you.